Evaluate the limit as x approaches 0 of sine x over x. This is a very common calculus question, and it's kind of an interesting question because when you plug in 0, you get sine of 0, which is 0, over 0. So anytime you have 0 over 0, we teach that algebra can simplify this, maybe help get rid of the problem. Here, though, that doesn't work because, sine x over x is pretty simple already. So the way we approach this then is by use of a table. And so this is a good exercise to look at to learn how to evaluate limits with a table. And so the idea is you want to take x values that are getting close to 0 and then see what the function values are doing. For example, I might start off with something like this. It will come from what we'll call from the left. So that means we get close to 0 but we're less than 0. So maybe something like negative 0.1, and then we'd see what sine x over x at negative 0.1 looks like, and then maybe we want to go negative 0.01 and negative 0.001, and see as we're getting closer to 0 this way, the hope is maybe we'll get some sort of trend in this direction as well. Okay, and then what I'll do is come from the other direction. So maybe I want to go from 0.01 and 0.001 and 0.0001 and so on, and see I'm trending towards 0 in that direction, and hopefully I'll get some sort of trend in this direction. So as I get close to 0 here, as I get close to 0 there, hopefully we'll get some sort of trend here, and that's what we want to figure out. Now, you can do this with a calculator. You can sit there and plug in each one of these values and get different solutions, and then go the other direction, get different solutions. And it's a little bit of a headache to do that. It's not very fun. So I'm going to show you how to do this in Microsoft Excel. And the great thing about Excel is if I want to change my function and not want to deal with sine x over x but something else, then changing the formula is not very difficult. And so let's get into it, and I'll just show you how it works. Okay, now I have my spreadsheet set up, and I want to show you a few elements of this before we get into it. So for example, here in the cell A2, I have 0. I call that my A value. So if I want to change where my limit's approaching, all I have to do is change this cell. And just for reference, B2 has my function. Okay, now the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to type in H to be 1, 2, 3, and I could keep going. And this is basically going to tell me how deep into my table I am. And so the way I'm going to set up my X value is I'm going to say equals my A value, which is A2, minus 1/10 to the H power. So in this case, that would be A6 power. Alright, so there it is. So what this is reading is 0 minus 1/10 to the first power. So that gives me the negative 0.01, or negative 0.1. Okay, so the next one's going to be minus 1/10 to the second power, and so on. Alright, and one little detail to make sure I want this 0 to be fixed. So in Excel, the way you do that is just put dollar signs around the A, and that way when I drag down my formulas, that'll be fixed. Okay, for my function value, all I have to do is say sine of B6 divided by B6. So there's my function value. Okay, now to fill out the rest of this table, all I have to do is highlight this and drag it down, and there I have it. So here's at negative 0.01, sorry, and you get the 99983, and then here you get negative 0.001, and Excel estimates that so close to 1 they just call it 1. Okay, so on the right hand side it's the same thing, except this time I'm going to have my A2 not minus but plus 0.1 to the H power. So it's A6. And again, my function is just sine x over x. So that's going to be sine of E6 divided by E6. Okay, and now to fill out this table, all I have to do is just drag it down. And so there we go. From the other side, I get the same values. And so it looks like coming from both directions, I'm approaching 1. So we see from the Excel sheet that we feel like the limit, as I'm getting close to 0 in the x direction from either direction, these sine values look like they're getting closer to 1. And that actually is what's happening. If you look at the graph of this curve, okay, coming from the left, you kind of slope up like this, and coming from the right, you kind of slope up the same way, like a mirror, and then right at 0, there's a hole. Alright, I'll put a brighter color just so you can see that a little better. It kind of goes like this from both directions. And so Excel confirmed exactly what our suspicion was. Now, again, what I mentioned about Excel, the usefulness of it, is I can easily change these parameters, where I'm approaching my limit and my function. So let me show you another example addressing this question. I want to know the limit as x approaches 1 of 1 over x minus 1. Now if you notice, if I plug in 1, I get 1 over 0. Okay, so what is that doing in terms of the table and the limit? I'll show you how this works in Excel, just like I did with the limit as x approaches 0 of sine x over x. Okay, so now the neat thing about this is if I wanted to do another example, let's say I want to approach 1 in the function value 1 over x minus 1. Okay, so if I want to do that, all I have to do, the only thing I have to change is in here, I just have to change my function value, my function. So that's going to be b6 minus 1. And notice, I don't have to change my x column because that is still 1 minus a power of 10, or power of 1/10. So I just drag it down, and on the other side, all I have to do again is just change my function to e6 minus 1 in the denominator. Okay, now in this example, you may not quite understand what's going on, so I might need more values. So let's go to the tens. And from there, I just have to drag down my function, or these cells, and Excel fills out the formulas for me. Okay, so what I can see here is coming from the left, as I get closer to 1, my values are just jumping off the page in the negative direction. And coming from 1 on the right hand side, my values are blowing up. Okay, so then we can say the limit from the left is going to negative infinity and the limit from the right is going to positive infinity. I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, please let me know. Excel is a great tool to use, even though you don't have to do it this way. It's a great tool to have. Let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.